Peace, peace, peace. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know, it's your boy Vic Slain Hope, and I got another video for y'all. Today's video is another one of the 48 laws of power, and it's law number 45. And it is preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. Right? Now, the judgment says, everyone understands the need for change in the abstract, but on the day-to-day level, people are creatures of habit. Too much innovation is traumatic and will lead to revolt. If you are new to a position of power or an outsider trying to build a powerhouse, make a show of respecting the old way of doing things. If change is necessary, make it feel like a gentle improvement on the past. Now, before I proceed with the video, y'all already know what's up. Y'all know what to do. Y'all kind of been here before. You know, we up to 45. It's 44 before this, right? So, if you like the content, make sure you like, you share, and you subscribe so other people could get hit to the game, man. It don't gotta hurt. You know what I'm saying? Now, let's get back to the book. Now, I'm gonna give you a few examples. The example in the book, the first example in the book, is about King Henry, right? Of England, the eighth, and this is like in the 1500s, right? So he kind of like wanted to marry a woman. He wanted to divorce his wife and marry another woman, and the Pope just wasn't trying to sanction it. And this is around the time where like everybody in Europe was on some Catholicism, right? This was like when Roman Catholic was like, excuse me, it was like the dominant thing, right? So he wanted to divorce his wife, and the Pope was against it. Now, back in those times, like, the Pope used to be signing off on a lot of stuff. Like, if the Pope didn't agree, then you wasn't getting it done, right? I'm not sure if it's still like that. I don't know if the Pope still kind of like holds that same type of power, but you get what I'm trying to say. So he basically didn't like the fact that the Pope wasn't trying to like allow him to like live his life how he wanted to live his life. So what he decided to do was he asked his advisor, and his advisor kind of like sided with the Pope. He was like, "Oh well, you don't really got a real reason to divorce her," which is really how divorce is really supposed to be. You need a reason, but nowadays you got unreconcilable differences, all type of stuff, right? But anyway, the point was he didn't like his answer, so he fired his advisor. He ended up, killing him because he's the king. You know, a lot of kings just you have to agree with them. If not, like you was in danger, right? So what happened now? He ended up hiring a new advisor. His new advisor posed this idea of like, you know what? You can just break away from Catholicism, right? He told them if you break away from Catholicism and establish your own church, then you can kind of like, do whatever you want. So that's kind of like what happened. And around this time was like, the major split, right? In the 1500s, I think the major split came about between Catholicism and Protestants, right? So anyway, so this new dude, and he changed the whole of England. They basically converted the whole of England to like the Protestant faith. They was breaking down cathedrals and windows and breaking saints, and like, so it was a rapid change. They started they confiscated the wealth in the churches. They just did a lot of stuff, right? And mind you, if you've been on centuries of believing in this faith, people will do a lot of crazy stuff for their faith, right? So anyway, so they just changed the religion so fast, so abruptly, even though it's still under Christianity, but it's probably has some new different tenets. But they just had this abruptly change, and what happened was it brought revolt, right? And when it brought revolt and things started to go down the drain, what ended up happening is um this dude you end up getting blamed. So what happens is like when you advise somebody to make a change, and they make a change or they make the bad investment that you suggested, and a lot of shit go down the drain, people tend to take out their frustrations on you. So that's kind of like what ended up happening. He took out his frustrations on his advisor that told him like, yeah, change the religion, then you could marry whoever you want, you could change the whole shit around, blah blah blah. And he ended up resenting him for that, because and then the woman he brought in was some ugly chick. It was just like a lot of crazy stuff. But anyway, he ended up resenting him, and that's just a prime example of when you change things too fast, people revolt and they don't kind of like that. Another example of this is I'm not sure if y'all know about like alcohol prohibition in the United States, right? Like in the 1800s, they banned alcohol from being like drink, right? Because people were getting, I don't know if people was getting drunk or their wives was complaining about them beating on them. But a lot, dudes was getting drunk and stuff a lot, right? And then, so the wives was complaining, and then they banned it, right? Trying to like say like, all right, we just y'all just gonna stop. So imagine now you go on a happy hour, and like I don't know, but they just be like, all right, no more liquor, right? Like people gonna feel some type of way and probably go crazy, which is what they did right in the 1800s. So banning alcohol, what it really did was it created more problems. Like people started making their own liquor, like hooch and stuff. They started making their own liquor, and because they didn't really know how to make the liquor, right, or how to like separate certain things, people started getting sick and started dying at higher rates than they were already dying from like liquor poisoning. I mean, from like liver poisoning and stuff. So it was crazy. So it inflated the deaths. So what they did was they had to kind of like allow liquor again, right? Now, how they use because it says right, use a slow measure, right, like a gentle improvement to the past, right, like a slow, like in the Quran, for example. In the Quran, when God prevented people, when God first revealed to stop drinking alcohol, he didn't just say stop drinking alcohol. The first verse that he revealed, three verses, right? And the first verse that he revealed was about there's a benefit in intoxicants, but then there's also like a risk, right? And he said that the risk was higher than the benefit. The benefit was like a small thing compared to the risk. So he's basically letting people know, like, yeah, you could drink it and there's a little benefit in there, but the risk is worse, right? So he was letting them know, giving them the option, right? Then after that, the second verse that was revealed about it, he basically said, because the Arabs were drunkards. So if he had just revealed stop drinking, they would have had the same revolt, right? They would have been like, I don't want to be Muslim. People tell me that now. I can't be Muslim. I can't eat. I can't eat pork. I can't do this, like, because they're thinking about those things, right? But again, even when Islam was revealed, like a lot of things came gradually. But let's go back to the alcohol. They were drunkards, right? So first it was like, oh, he was just basically telling them there's a benefit and then there's a harm. The harm is greater than the benefit. Then he told them, do not approach the prayer while you are intoxicated until you know what you're saying. And you got to pray 5 times a day, right? So if you can't be drunk for your prayers, then that's a large amount of time throughout the day that you're not drinking just because you're thinking about guarding your prayers, right? So he was weaning them off. And then after this period, he revealed another verse that just prohibited it altogether, right? It said, drinking is a abomination of Satan's work and stay away from it, right? So that's kind of like how the sequence went, right? So see, it was gradually. It wasn't all of a sudden, because if it was all of a sudden, then a lot of people probably would never even try to convert to Islam, and Allah knows best, right? So that's why it's basically saying like people are creatures of habit. If you just change their scenery like drastically, it has a negative impact on them. We learned about this in when we was learning in gerontology about like elderly care. When you remove, if an elderly person lived in her neighborhood for like 40 years, like you don't just remove her in old age and take her somewhere else, because she's not gonna feel good. She's gonna feel sad. She's gonna feel stressed. She's gonna deteriorate and probably die quicker. The same thing happened to my grandfather when he stopped working. His health just deteriorated because he stopped moving like he was moving. He was an older man, and the moment you just change scenery so quick or just change routines abruptly, it has a negative effect. So it was saying if you're in a new position of power and trying to like build a power, show it says show a respect to the old way, right? So I know a dude, he kind of like he owns a club. So when he came to the club, he bought it from another dude, and he kept the old staff. But when he came to the club, he was trying to just dictate and run things however he wanted to run it. So the workers was kind of like, nah, homie, like you need to chill out. And he knew he had to chill out because otherwise they would just leave and you would be sick trying to find people to hire for the club. So he kind of like knew he had to step back a little bit. So he listened, but he still be trying to like dictate shit, right? But the point is, when you get into a position of power, even then you gotta small changes. Again, people are creatures of habit. When they already have something cohesiveness going on, it's hard for them to just let you come in and think you're just going to change everything. They don't care who you are. Like, and and even if they listen to you just because you're the boss, I'm telling you, people gonna start leaving and quitting. So it's not a very smart thing to do, right? Because again, when you change their habitat, not their habitat, but when you change the cohesiveness of the work field and what's going on, it creates a lot of issues. And the last thing that it was kind of saying, if change is necessary, then make it feel like a gentle improvement of the past. For example, in Russia, right, they still have like the body of Vladimir Vladimir Lenin, right? Which is kind of like, you know, I believe he's the person that kind of like helped them in the communist revolution, or he probably the one that made the country revolution. He's probably the person that made the country communist or whatever. If I'm not mistaken, I could be mistaken. But Lenin is a figure. He's a very important figure in Russian history, right? So they kept his body, they preserved his body, right, to the point, so they still draw on the power of the past to this day, right? That's why they got his body preserved and embalmed, like it's preserved to this day. So when they saying right here, if you must use some type of change, always try to like use examples of the past to kind of like, you know, like for example, like somebody might say, oh, I'm trying to change this because I'm trying to, like, you know, boom boom boom, like I'm trying to be a revolutionary, or I'm trying to do it this way, right? So they might allude to like the founding fathers, like, yeah, like when they was trying to separate from England. And that's why people hold on to the Constitution so dearly, because it's a so-called, like, you know, the symbolism, and you know, the land of the free, home of the brave, and you know, so they allude all of that stuff to the past, right? America still kind of like holds on to this day, when they invade other countries, and or when they say they're trying to protect the interests of the world, right? And freedom and courage and democracy. You know, they use all of that crap because they're pulling on the Constitution and the founding fathers, and the war with England, and how they was a small power. So they use things from the past to kind of like fuel change and futuristic stuff, if that makes sense. And the reversal of this law is basically like, if the past is something negative, then don't use it. Do not use the past if it's something negative to try to get your change across, because it's just gonna be disastrous, and people are probably like, you're probably gonna remind them of some hurt or some trauma, and they just not gonna really mess with you. But that's about it. Let me know what y'all thoughts are in the comment section. Like, comment, subscribe, share. Y'all stay blessed. Peace.